Hello everybody, and let's get rid of that. Hello and welcome to today's show. A little bit of a technical glitch at the beginning. Restream decided to add a second restreaming site server thingy, and it didn't like the old settings, so here we are. But here we are nonetheless, and hopefully you can hear me, and it's sounding good to you all. I've got the chat all over the place. So there we are, some nice new people joining us tonight on the stream, Friday evening here in the USA. For those of you who are new to the stream, hello, welcome, thank you for coming. The stream is all about your questions, making your evening just that much more entertaining, hopefully by getting you to think a little bit. And if you have questions, it doesn't matter what system it might be, if it's narrative-based problems, if it's story problems, if it's something along those lines, let us know, ask your question. Now, the way that you're going to be doing that is you write the word question in caps lock, all in caps lock, and then you ask your question. Now, there are lots of questions. As you can see behind me, the questions will flow through thick and fast, and if I miss your question, fear not, simply ask it again. That's right, just repost it into the chat, and if I still miss it, please head on over to head on over to discord.gg/greatgm. That's our Discord server. And you'll find a section there called live sessions. Simply jot down your question there so we can all see it, and then I will read it out in the following live sessions. It will take priority. So if you don't get your question asked, discord.gg/greatgm, and I shall answer it. We have got so many different things to get through tonight. It is crazy. I have got our usual menu. Let's have a look and see what we are doing today. Bing! That's the wrong slide, you fool! Wrong slide! That's the right side. There we go. So, we've got YouTube videos to watch. We have 4 YouTube videos to watch. And the theme for tonight, this is for you to bear in mind. Let's just go back. Let's go back. The theme for tonight's show. I'm trying to theme the shows. It's like, oops, sorry about that. Now, I'm trying to theme the shows. So, today's theme is designing your world. How to start, where to start, what you should be doing, what you should be thinking about, designing your world. So that's the theme. So we've got YouTube stuff that we're going to be doing. We have got, let's go back to that slide. There we go. There's the slide. We've got creative writing. We're going to be doing some creative writing tonight. So think about that we're going to be doing on the hour. Let's do it on the hour. Why not? Let's do it on the hour. Review of RPG sessions. We don't do that anymore. That's for when I'm running RPG sessions on my channel. Currently it's Ghost of Saltmarsh, which I am running on D&D channel. Have a look at that. Twitch channel. Have a look at that. Random chaos. That's what's going to happen. It will always happen. Your questions. That is what is important. Your questions. We want your questions. People have already been putting in questions. That's fantastic. Gives me something to miss. Then, Creative Showcase. I actually finally have something for you. And I showed you a little hint of it at the very beginning of the stream. Don't worry if you missed it. You weren't supposed to see it. It was a mistake, a technical mistake. Surprise! On this channel, you can expect those to happen. It's me, and I'm doing them, and I take full credibility for them. So when they are a disaster and when they are a success. And I see that somehow this little I don't know what's changed. I don't know. I was doing stuff. I was tweaking stuff, and all this stuff seems to have, I don't know. It's all over the place. Anyway, I only just noticed that now. That's what I also hate. It's like, well, you've had the entire evening to plan for this thing. What the hell? Now it's even smaller. How do we make it bigger? Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Anyway, if you donate to the channel, ACP O'Neill will be knocked off the chart as our monster to defeat. So if it's Super Chat, or if it's a subscription to Twitch, or if it's bits, this little slider bar here will move down, and hopefully you will be replaced and crowned as monster of the stream. So just bear that in mind. Now, enough of that. Let's get on with it. Let's look at some questions. And there they go, flying past my window. Nicholas Duarte says, when I first start a campaign as a game master, how do I get my PCs to meet for the first time? That's a great question. That is a great question, Nicholas. And there are thank you for that, Katie Letson. Wow, you are our new monster to beat, and that is fantastic. Thank you so much. No question, you just love my work. Well, I truly appreciate it. I really do, Katie. Thank you for that. Okay, so Nicholas, back to your question. How do you get your players to meet up? Well, there are a couple of things that you can think about. Do not put them in a tavern and wait for them to find the plot. My immediate advice to you, and I have done videos on this before, they are on the channel, so you can go and look for them, but principally, they should start as allies and friends already. You should have had a session 0. Now, this is something that is not referenced in many of the starting role-playing books. Session 0. It's very, very important. Session 0, not too long, is quite simply... you just get them around the table, you get them to design the characters, and during that period, you get them to roleplay a little bit as if they are already a party, give them a little adventure, just something they can play out in 2 hours or so, let them work together so that by the time you're ready to start your first session, they are already good companions and you can move on. Now, if you do want to start them in a tavern, like Rage Wolf is lamenting, I love tavern starts. You are alone in that, Rage Wolf, but that's okay, because sometimes being alone is fine. No, I'm being facetious. If you do want to start them in a tavern, at least have the courtesy of blowing up the tavern, or having the barmaid turn out to be a vampire, or the barkeep turning out to wanting to turn them into beer or something. Do something along those lines. It would be great for them to do that. Unmade Gaming, hello! Welcome to the stream, Unmade Gaming. Nice to see you here. So yes, that would be my advice on how to get your party together. Have them together already. Run a session 0. Honorable 596 says, what do you think of a curse that summons a literal sword of Damocles over the recipient's head? It's a terrible curse. I hope that there is something behind that, otherwise curses are bad. Curses are very difficult things to run in games, because they are usually very personal. When I run curses in my games, generally I curse the entire party. I curse you, I curse you, I curse you. I have cursed you thrice, and thrice thus you have been cursed, and thus cursed you shall remain. You always need to have motivation for the curse. You should always have a very clear way of having it removed. The PCs should learn of how to remove that curse fairly quickly. And if it is very debilitating to one class or to one race, or in this case, anyone who's got low hit points, I would certainly be very nervous of applying it to one character in particular. Even if the rogue opens up a secret door or something and they failed to check for the traps, or they checked for traps and they didn't find them and the door is open, I would still apply it to the entire party. Why? Because I think it's unfair to put all of the weight of a single outcome, such as a curse, on the individual who was doing it. The wizard and the paladin and the barbarian never had a chance of getting that curse because they wouldn't be opening up secret traps and doors. All that pressure is put onto the thief. So why punish the thief for trying to do something that they are supposed to be good at, but the dice just said no? So that is something that I would think about there. Xander Green, you need to complete your question in order to ask a question. I appreciate the attempt at beginning the question by saying question, but I do need more than that. Park Shields says, question, overland travel, can it be interesting, and how? Today, I went on a little bit of overland travel, and I will be sharing those travel exploits with you Well, let's do it on the half hour, shall we? On the half hour. I think on the half hour is a good idea. During that overland travel, we were basically moving from one state to the other. It wasn't very long. It was a 2-hour drive. And was it interesting? Well, yes, it was. Because I learned... Pikmin Biomaster, thank you for that.
Amongst goblins everywhere.
Yes, thank you for telling me that. Now, whilst we were travelling along, I was introduced to a new game. And this game I shall certainly be trying to play in any country that I come across that happens to have cows. The game is called Hello Cow. Now, it's fairly complicated, so sit down and get your pens and pencils ready as I explain how you play Hello Cow. You wind down the window of your vehicle whilst driving past a field of cows. All right, got that? You then scream, "Hello, cow!" as you drive past said field of cows. You then quickly count, preferably not the driver, everybody else in the car, you quickly count how many cows looked up in bewilderment and wonderment as why this human was greeting them so friendlily. The number of cows that look up is your score. Then, and here's the kicker, when you get to another field of cows, somebody else gets to shout, "Hello, cow." And you count how many cows look up, and he who has the highest score is the winner. Needless to say, I won. So I had 3 cows look up in absolute bewilderment as to why I was shouting "Hello, cow." And what was that long story all about? Well, quite frankly, travel is all about creating memories for the players if there needs to be some. It's also about seeding. Now, I did a whole video on how to make travel interesting, where you look at it from the purposes of what is the reason for the travel in the first place. If the reason for travel is simply to get the characters from point A to point B, and there is no value in the travel being overly complicated or being added to, then it doesn't need to be. If the travel is simply because the players have decided to head north and they're exploring and they want to see what's going on, that's a very different type of travel. That's no longer travel, that's exploration. So that's something that's very critical, I think, that people don't keep in the backs of their minds, is the difference between travel is going from one destination to another, a known destination to another. Exploration is moving from one place to an unknown place. So that you want to make much more interesting. Again, though, repetition is our enemy, so they can do some checks, they could have a combat, they could meet somebody, they could have a challenge to overcome, but that's it. One or two things per travel montage. If it's more than that, you are on an adventure, and the adventure itself is part of the travel thing. So that's to bear in mind for you to think about. Mutama says, "Hey, about to start a game with 8 players and 2 GMs. Well, yeah, or 2 games with 4 players each. Me being one of them. Any tips on how to handle the situation?" All right, so 2 GMs. If you're going to be running 8 players, you're running 2 GMs. It does depend. Is the one GM simply there to provide support? In which case they are looking up rules, they are looking up spells, they are preparing NPCs, they are getting battle maps ready, they're doing that kind of thing during the game, and after the game they're sitting with the other game master and they are working out the adventure and they're working out the maps and all that kind of stuff? Or is it 2 GMs to try and wrangle the 4 players together? It's a very complicated situation, and lots of fun can arise out of that. So think about that, and maybe give us some more information on that. Give us some more information from that. Right, next question. Honorable 596 says, "What does this title say to you? The March of the Troll King. It's a working title of a campaign that I plan on running someday." Well, the March of the Troll King. Okay, where's he marching to? Why is he marching? The trolls have a king? I thought they just needed a bridge. Okay, well, they've got a king. There we go. That's fantastic. So it sounds interesting. There's the potential where they're marching to, why they're marching, what's got them marching, what will they do once they are finished marching. So there's lots of questions that come out of a title like that. So I think it's a pretty good title. Next question. Ken says, where are you in the US now? Currently, I am in Minneapolis. Staying with some very good friends of mine who are patrons of the channel. That's how we met. And who are very good role players themselves. So lots of role playing, lots of adventuring. And like I said, on the half hour, we'll talk about one of my adventures that I went on today with them, because that is a lot of fun. Next is White Tiger 225 says, some have asked what music you play before the stream starts. What is in those musics? Who wrote it? That was written by a friend of mine, Colin Meyer. He is a musician, very talented musician, very talented programmer. He's just one of those very smart people. And he and I used to be thick as thieves when I used to live in South Africa, and we would write music. He would write it, and then I would say, well, let's tweak this or let's adjust that. And he would sometimes do that, and sometimes he'd ignore me. And either way, it doesn't matter. It worked out beautifully. So that's the music written by Colin Meyer. Sadly, I don't think he has any kind of internet presence or anything along those lines. Next is Sight. How are we doing for time? We're okay on time. Sight says, when seeding guilds, how would you drop information regarding a thieves guild which the players have backgrounds related to? I'd like some surprises in there, but they get backstory on it, right? Well, yes, if the players' backstories include that they are part of the Thieves Guild or that they were influenced by the Thieves Guild in some way, something that I would look at doing is perhaps a short answer would simply be, you are walking down the street and your eye happens to catch on the corner of the shop near the gutter a very strange symbol. It looks like 3 circles with a line drawn across 2 of them, creating almost like a stripe through 3 circles. You recognize this, nobody else does. And when the player says, well, what is it? You could either hand them a note and say that there's 3 circles with a line drawn through it indicates that this store will be robbed in 1 night's time. Each of the circles represents a night, and 2 of the nights have already passed, so in 1 night's time, so not tonight, but tomorrow night, this store will be robbed. The Thieves Guild is in operation. Now, if the player chooses to use that information, they're more than welcome to. If they choose to keep it to themselves, then they keep it to themselves. But by allowing them to see that, they see that the Thieves Guild is in operation. They can look around for some street kids and then quietly go over to the street kid and say, take me to the... take me to whoever is in charge, take me to your Fagin, take me to your Thane, take me to your leader, however they want to run it, and then that will allow you to introduce them into the Thieves Guild. And the Thief Master will say, well, how did you know we were around? I saw your sign, I speak Thieves' Cant, and that's how you can introduce them. So that's one way of doing it. Keep it a little bit mysterious and let that player have that cool knowledge. So I wouldn't necessarily say to the whole table, well, you recognize it as this. Rather just give them a little note, hand the note over to them, and then let them decide what they want to do. Because thieves and rogues and things like that often like to have these kind of surreptitious backstories. So that's one way of doing that. Next, David Smith says, question, Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. Great. How do I maintain horror in a long-running campaign with high-level PCs? Whenever they encounter something slightly scary, they just murderize it. Oh, dear. Yes, okay. Well, it sounds like there's 2 things that are happening. One, the horror campaign. I have definitely done a video on how to run a horror campaign. It's a long video. Go and have a look at it. But the long and short of it is that horror needs to be broken up with something light. So horror, something light, something funny, something amusing, something sad, horror, something light, something funny, something amusing, something sad, horror. Otherwise, we have absolutely nothing to compare the horror with, and it all just becomes, oh, another monster, kill it, another monster, kill it, another monster, kill it. In terms of them just murdering everything, murderizing, as you put it so nicely, in terms of them murderizing everybody, that's a different question. Is it because they're scary, or is it because they just murderize everything? NPCs included, happy NPCs, sad NPCs, etc. If it is just scary NPCs, then my immediate suggestion is, okay, isn't that the point of a horror game? Is if it's something horrific, then kill it. If, of course, you want them to learn the lesson that just because it's scary doesn't mean that you have to kill it, have them slay something and then have the ghost rise out of it and then curse them. I was an innocent child and you slew me anyway. Now you are cursed. You must atone for your evil act. So you can teach them in various different ways that they don't just need to kill everything that they come across. However, you yourself then need to also adjust how you're game mastering and make sure that not every single scary thing is then evil and will attack them. Because what often happens is they start to see patterns. That's how we work. We see patterns. So if the first 3 scary things that we have encountered so far in the adventure have all tried to kill us, it makes sense that every time we see a scary thing, we will simply kill it too. That's important to realize, is that oftentimes we set the precedent that we didn't intend to, simply because we're trying to run a good game. So sometimes you need to pull that back and just try that. Adrian, hello, waves to you. I know it's late in your part of the world. No, it's not late in your part of the world. Why are you going to bed so early? Anyway, I'm just being facetious. Right, it's gone. Chuck Cox 72 says, any thoughts on Dungeons & Dragons during an hour lunch break at work? Limited to 1 or 2 sessions per week, and role-playing is proving difficult, so just hack and slash with fast level up, maybe. You certainly could do it that way. Something to perhaps think about, since you're wanting to do it at work, is you could go play by post. So during that 1 hour, although it's nice for you all to get out and go and sit somewhere and gather, play by post might very well be an option as well, where you set up a post server, find a Discord server, you can come and use ours. We've got various channels where you can role play, and during the course of the day, you guys post what's happening, what your characters are doing, and then when you're getting together for that 1 hour, you're basically resolving that kind of stuff. So the role play is happening through written entries. So after work, you spend 10 minutes, you just write up your post for that night. Next morning, you can read everybody else's posts, and then at lunch, you can then get together and then resolve that. So if it comes to a combat, or if it comes to social skill rolls or whatever, you can then do that during lunch. So then you're just rolling dice, having a bit of fun at lunch, rather than trying to also focus on what's happening on the game. I think that might be a way of doing things. The next question, Various Kid says, I have started... Are we on the time yet? No, not yet. I have started world building a small local area on a continent that is meant to be a colony of larger powers elsewhere. I want to run a campaign in this frontier. What should be in my pitch? Well, you've got the old frontier. It's a new world. There is openness. This is the final frontier of our large empire. Join us today and you'll be given vast tracts of land, totally unexplored. So I would position your pitch as being frontier play. That automatically means that there's going to be lots of conflict, there's going to be unknowns, there's going to be mystery, there's going to be, we didn't know that was living here, there's ancient ruins that haven't yet been discovered, so I would look at that. Obviously, you're going to use the word colony, so it's a frontier adventure where you are part of an early colony that's been sent out by the Empire to set up this establishment, and I would take it from there. So yes, it's great to have a small world building space. That's good. It keeps you focused. It keeps you on track, if that's your style. And then I would then talk about the potential. So is it going to be a horror game? Is it going to be a survival game? Is the colony going to run out of food and the players are going to have to try and find it? Those kinds of things, because there are various different ways of running a colony game as well. Think about the ways in which you're going to run that. Are the PCs cast out almost immediately, so they're on their own, they have to go off and do that kind of thing? Are there lots of politics with the local people, and it's those kinds of things? Absolutely. So correct, Filter Pipe. She's got huge tracts of land. Yes, without a doubt, huge tracts of land. Okay, hold your questions. Hold your questions. Be still. Be silent. Be calm. Be calm. Hold your questions. I'm going to talk about what I did today, because what I did today was made possible by all of you, and I think it will be of benefit for you. It is also going to be part of our theme for today, which is designing worlds. And it is going to tie into the creative writing challenge. So here we go. All right. So if you have asked questions before or after I said hold your questions, just re-ask them after this. So today I was treated to a trip to this place, Castle Rock Museum. Castle Rock Museum. Now, Castle Rock Museum, they went, wow, it's got all sorts of medieval armor in it, and it's pretty cool, and it's pretty awesome, and it's just fantastic. And I went, well, that's great. Let's go. Let's go and have a look. Let's go and have a look. Right, lovely, 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 lovely. So we drive out, and this is the castle. Now, having been in Finland, I go, well, that's a rather unassuming space. But woe he who judges a book by its cover, for he is doomed, doomed, I tell you, to miss this. For once you step inside Castle Rock Museum, there is a treasure here in the middle of Wisconsin that I would never have imagined. Now, where are we? Why are these going down? Okay, that's interesting. Okay, well, we're going to run through all of these very quickly. That was a spoiler. I don't know why it's doing that now. Anyway, who cares? Right, so Castle Rock. There it is. Castle Rock Museum. And it is in Alma, in Wisconsin. Lovely little town. Beautiful, very, very beautiful little town. And so we started to walk around. Now, this is the jousting material, as you well will recognize. I mean, we all recognize it. We've all been jousting. Good old joust. You know, nothing worse than a bad joust. So this was our joust. Let me pop myself up there and then just say, go to the corner with you, to the corner, to the corner. All right. So this is a traditional joust thing happening. It looks pretty cool. This is the helmet that they would wear. And what I was unaware of, is for jousting tournaments, the knights would wear different armor to the armor that they would wear when they're going into combat. This sucker here, for example, weighs 28 pounds on its own. That's ridiculously heavy just for the helmet. To the point that the helmet was actually not a helmet, it was more of a neck brace than anything else. It was bolted onto the armor that they wore. Then the swan up here is what would go onto the helmet, and it was basically your favorite colors. So your favorite knight would wear the swan or the whatever. Now, you earned points for knocking off the figurehead of the knight, for de-seating the knight, and for breaking your lance, and for various other bits and bobs. But there was a various scoring things. Then we had above the swan, or going through the swan, it actually isn't, it's hanging behind it, was a child's lance. This was for a young princeling or a young noble learning how to use a lance. And it's specifically hanging through that little hoop there, because that was what they would use to practice with. Get the little lance through the hoop. Now, it is theorized that this is the origin of a merry-go-round, where you ride on a little carousel horse, or carousel, I suppose you would call it as well. You ride on a carousel, and you go around the carousel, and you, yes, apparently this is potentially where it came from. Now, what really caught my attention, however, were the lances right at the top. Right at the top up there. And do you see those very strange flanges, if you like, at the base of the lance? I always thought that lances had a little nice round, almost buckler-like shield on them. And so when I saw these, I went, well, I don't know. That's interesting. So what's going on there? What's the story? And then they have these incredibly fine, I can't point to it because the camera doesn't go that far, but these incredibly fine tips. I hope you can see that on the video. So I went, well, these can't be war lances. I mean, the flanges are wooden and they're not very strong. It's like, well, okay, so, right. Then what is it for? And this I found really, really, really awesome. Those flanges are for training purposes. And what you would do is you would have this very long lance with this very, very, very small tip, and you would try and get it through brass hoops. But as the lance dips down to go through the hoop, there's a risk that the hoop will actually fall off. And you don't want that to happen. So what happens is the hoop goes through the lance, it hits the flanges, and can you see just sort of towards the middle, I wish I could point to it, just towards the middle of it, there's a sort of a cup-shaped bracket. That's for the hoop to lock into, so that all your hoops remain on your lance and you can count how many hoops you would manage to get your lance through. So I think that's a pretty cool thing, which I didn't know about, and it certainly started to get me thinking. And oh, we've had a stream raid from the DM's Lair. Hello, DM's Lair. Welcome, welcome, y'all. You're all welcome to be here. Thank you for joining us. So the idea of these very gamified weapons of war was certainly cool. Now, I knew about jousting, and I knew it's two riders riding towards each other and that sort of thing, but it starts to get you to think, and it starts to get me to think anyway. Okay, yes, the lance is cool, but the lance with the extra hoops on it becomes a little bit more of a descriptor. It becomes a little bit more interesting. So that was something that I thought was pretty cool. I pretty much enjoyed that. Now, this is all inside this little museum in Castle Rock Museum. This was a lovely helmet. This is not from the medieval period. We've now moved forward a little bit. But what I really liked was it doesn't matter what century, and someone is always going to dot their helmets or their eyes with hearts. There are little hearts on the outside of this very cool frill. I thought that was quite cute. This is just a detailing of one of the very many pole arms that they had. It was goodbye DM's Lair. Just the attention to detail, the engraving that was on it. I took this very close-up picture because I wanted to try and impress it into my mind that the next time the characters find a blade, not just to say it's engraved, but to say it's engraved with an image of the god, with flames pouring out of them and lightning bolts along the edge of the blade, so you can really build it up and do that sort of thing. And this is not necessarily, this was used in a palace as decoration on the soldiers. They had it with them, but it's also a highly functional weapon. This is a detailing from a Targ, or Taj, depending on how you want to pronounce it. This is the shield. The center of the shield is right at the top of the screen. And then we've got this amazing engraving happening on it. Again, just beautification, magic items, talking about different types of engraving. You've got 12 people standing in a circle around the center of the shield. Just beautiful, beautiful detailing. At least I certainly thought it was. This pooch, this wonderful little dog, is not being abused in the slightest. Well, certainly not in this picture anyway. This little dog, this is a hunting dog, and they would go hunting with the master into the forest, where they would hunt down boar. The boar had a particularly nasty habit of going for the throats of the hunting dogs, to try and kill the dogs. So this little collar was actually worn by the dog to protect them from the boars that they were helping their masters hunt. And I thought that was a very interesting little piece of battle armor. Maybe not the whole hunting and the boar and all that kind of stuff, but the next time you have an animal companion to put on a spiked collar, I think it's pretty damned intimidating, if you ask me. I certainly wouldn't want to go anywhere near it. But anyway, it was a very cute little dog too. So I thought, well, every doggo deserves his day in Dungeons and Dragons, I think. This is simply because I was in a state, and the idea of creamed possum with sweet potatoes garnished in coon fat gravy. This was an ancient tin from a time period when life was different. But I did feel like I had stepped into a different world when I walked into this wonderful little town. This particular restaurant that we went to, they had all these ancient tins, and you can see signs, Cato beer in the back. They had all these ancient old things. But again, I was looking at it going, I personally think that this is a terrible, terrible can. I don't even want to know what's happening inside this can. It does not in any way or shape or form get me excited about eating what is in this can. I have a suspicion it's going to be great. But I took a photograph of it anyway, because I'm sure there are dwarves, or there are elves, or there are whatever who will eat this with happiness and full-hearted heartiness. So it is something to just keep around going, yeah, have a look at that. The next time your party comes across. Remember, the theme for today is designing your world. So anything that inspires you to design your world, maybe orcs like it, as Grizzless is pointing out. So yes, anything. Who knows? Goblin food, perhaps, could be that as well. You know, it's there we go. Eric Sheely saying good evening. I don't know if he's trying to speak cow, which we were trying to do this afternoon. Anyway, so there's that. This remarkable weapon. This is a flamberge, Zweihander, two-handed sword. Flamberge simply means the blade is that wonderful wavy shape. And to give you comparison, underneath it is a variant on a longsword. So you can see that flamberge is very, very long, or the Zweihander is very, very long. That handle is two-handed. Sometimes this was called dubbelen soldaren, meaning twice pay. The reason why people who wielded this sword, what is the active of wield? The people who would wield this, let's put it that way, were paid double the amount of money that anybody else on the battlefield was paid. Why? Because this delightful weapon was used primarily, once we had moved into the late 15th, 16th century, against pikemen. Pikemen had proved particularly effective against cavalry. So you had your musketmen, and then you had your pikemen to prevent those musketmen from being overrun by cavalry. And so these poor individuals wielding these massive weapons filled a pipe. Thank you very much. I appreciate your free money, just as I'm sure you appreciated getting it. But these people would take these swords, and they would walk up to the pikemen, and then they would smack into the pikemen. But because of that sort of wonderful beveling on the blade, it would actually catch onto the pikes, and it would pull the pikes sideways long enough for cavalry possibly to even charge in, or possibly to even get someone else in there to try and charge in. So they were basically like these great big rakes that happened. And of course they were very heavy weapons, so it would then just pull it in. So very, 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 very large weapon, very dangerous weapon. So very, very interesting kind of weapon. And again, this was as a result of pike fighting. Now what's curious is that the hoplites of Greece and Rome, early Rome, they all used very long pikes, basically, and had these long pike battles. But they didn't have lots of cavalry, and they didn't have the stirrup. Well, thank you for that, Terranatum. So they didn't have stirrups, so there wasn't, cavalry was there, but it wasn't nearly as effective as it was today. So, yes, the blade could cut through the pikes, it could knock them aside. So it was interesting how we kind of went to pikes, then we went away from pikes, and then we came back to pikes as muskets came in and started to make all of that armor redundant. The next image, I just like this image. This is a true unicorn. This is an armored unicorn. So this is the head plate that would go onto a horse with this very long spike onto it. Curious enough, horses were smaller during that period. We know that from various channels and discovery of horse graveyards and that sort of thing from the time period. But to put the spike on the horse's head, the horse had to be trained quite well. And the interesting thing that came out of that was, when you look at role-playing games, Dragon de Jew, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. When you look at role-playing games, when our players are given horses or something along those lines, we very seldom get to use them effectively in combat. So there's lots of things that happen. There's lots of things that we need to look at and go, okay, well, how can we make them more interesting? Perhaps if you want a more mounted game to be involved. So yeah, as Xander the Green says, don't fall forward on your horse. So yes, if your horse puts its head down and you're sliding off of the front of it, you're in it for a very rude time. Nearly done, though. Nearly done. Now, look at this. This picture does not do it any justice whatsoever. It is a poleaxe. So that means that the wooden shaft at the far end is about 6 foot long. Then you have this blade, which is the full length of a longsword, plus the little axe thing in front of it as well. Wow. Roach, 1982, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. You have this incredibly long blade and this big axe, and it's just It's just insane. It's absolutely insane. And we started to then talk and say, well, would this do more damage than a longsword? And we went, yes, definitely would do more damage than a longsword. Is it as agile as a longsword? Definitely not. It's definitely slower. What's the axe for? Why would we want the axe type of thing? And that is simply so you can smack it down and crack through stuff. So it's a very interesting variant on a very interesting weapon. The polearm had so many different heads and so many different sort of setups and things. It was absolutely insane, and this was the final one of them. So that was my wonderful trip to Castle Rock Museum. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was given to me as a trip of wonderment by Game Master's Vault, and we were joined by Eric and Stephen. It was just an absolute blast, an absolute blast. So the next time you go to a museum, don't necessarily just look. Sometimes think beyond going, oh, that's nice, oh, that's boring, oh, next. Sometimes look at it and go, okay, well, why did they do that? Why did they make that shape? What was it in response to? Bear that in mind, because in 13 minutes, maybe we have to delay the creative writing a little bit because I've spent too much time on this, I'm sorry. But why and what caused them to do that? We know that when gunpowder and when firearms started to become massively popular, all those wonderful knights and all that wonderful armor was no longer required. It didn't stop bullets, so they had to change everything. And I was having the 4th of July yesterday, wonderful celebrations here, and one of our guests at this wonderful event was or is a retired, I should say, US Air Force officer. And she was saying that she was doing combat training wearing 45 pounds worth of Kevlar and various bits and pieces of armor not 10 years ago. And the knights were not wearing 45 pounds, they were wearing 38 pounds, so a lot less with all of their heavy armor, but it wouldn't stop a bullet, whereas the Kevlar certainly would, and it would reduce shrapnel and that sort of thing. So how has that changed? What is the response to that? What are we looking at? How are we trying to move forward? So that's something to think about. That is definitely something to think about. So there you go. Right, enough from me. Let's go back to questions. We're going to do questions for the next 12 minutes. So if you have questions, now is the time to ask them. Go ahead and ask your questions while I just reset myself to full screen, Scotty, full screen. I'll talk about YouTube videos on the half hour after that. So that's what we got coming up. Creative writing, of course, as well. Something to bear in mind, if you're going to be at GenCon and you don't yet know, I will be at GenCon. I will be at GenCon running 2 seminars. One called Insert a Giant Banana, for which the Game Master's Vault, who is hosting me here in Minneapolis, has printed a most remarkable statue, which I will reveal at GenCon. I absolutely adore it. And I will be participating in the Save or Dice live play. That's on Friday evening or Friday afternoon, 3 p.m. Until 6 p.m. I believe I will be the Dungeon Master for that. And what we're going to be doing is something a little different. And we're bringing back some of your favorite characters. And I'm not saying any more than that. Right, so jumping into questions, look at them all coming through. Natural Roll D&D Productions says blur. Says blur because the screen jumped up before I could ask the question. Let's go and find it. There we go. Looking for a fantasy sports mini game attached to my downtime in a major campaign. Looking for any kind of made-up sport, i.e. Blood Bowl, but that also has role-playing aspects in societies. Okay, Natural Roll D&D Productions. It's a good question, and I have done a video on how to incorporate sport into role-playing. So you can go and have a look for that video. Remind me to talk about videos and volunteers and exciting things on that front, by the way. When you look at sport, Blood Bowl certainly is one option that comes to mind. There are many other things that can come through. You look at the origins of cricket. You look at the origins of polo, where it was an enemy's head that was being knocked around as everyone was riding around on their horses trying to spear it and then flick it through a hoop. You look at the origins of rugby, which was potentially either a barrel of beer that was being fought over between two little villages or the inflated bladder of an animal that was used to settle a dispute. You can really delve into those kinds of things, but then you can look further beyond and you go, okay, well, what about something like Quidditch, where you have magic involvement? Maybe the sport is actually two mages and they're using Mage Hand and they're basically playing a game of tennis. Who can get the ball to move at enough velocity that it has more than 5 pounds of weight, so it just punches straight through that Mage Hand? You can do those kinds of things, and of course, then you would have celebrities. And that's just stuff that's off the top of my head. So think about that. It's really, really fun to do that. Then think about how we treat sports celebrities. The biggest reason why we have sports celebrities, or why we have any kind of celebrity for that matter, is availability of information. So within a village, you might have, oh, well, he's the favoured mage. He's pretty good at he's got a little flick thing that he does, and that gets the ball going really fast. And if the other mages don't backtrack with their hand, it punches straight through. He's my favourite. Oh, no, well, she's a visiting one. We don't know anything about her. So if your world has good communication, if it's got lots of means of getting that information all the way across the world, that's fantastic. In which case, then, the celebrity will probably be bigger, and then they will have rivalries with other towns and things, so that is definitely something to bear in mind. So think about that. Okay, now, the Corey Harrell says, how do you manage experienced players making all the actions while new tabletop fellow players feel like they are just following and don't know when they should act? It's a great question. It really is a good question, and it has a whole bunch of implications. The easiest solution that I can think of: split the party. Put the old players in one side, put the new players in another side of the dungeon, and let the new players shine. Let them stand on their own 2 feet. Let them rescue the old players. You can tie up old players in traps and riddles and the like, and let the new players really come to their own. Another option: have the old players, or the experienced players, let's put it that way, have their characters kidnapped and have the young ones have to try and find them. Let them do that kind of thing. And also, speak to the experienced players. If they're experienced players, they've been role-playing for a long time, you can simply say to them, guys, this is obviously in chat and not with the young players or the inexperienced players nearby. Hey, tone it down. They need an opportunity to learn how to role-play, so quietly is better. Let them lead, let them make the mistakes, provide mentorship, not dictatorship. That's a philosophy I have always stuck to, and I think it's one that is, I think it's a pretty good one. Still got some time. Rage Wolf. I'm currently playing a Pathfinder game where some players are making characters that keep losing interest in the party, wandering off and getting killed. How do you avoid that? Well, the GM should be reining that in. Players are making characters that keep losing interest in the party. I lament this. This also sounds a little bit like the players themselves are not the nicest of people. And you get players who make these characters and then say, "Oh, my character wouldn't work with the party." So why did you make the character in the first place? Oh, you've made another one that's done the same thing? Guess what? You can go buy us pizza, and then you can go watch a movie with your non-existent girlfriend. Oh wait, that's right, you don't even have that. I hate it when players create characters that there is any risk that they're going to leave the party. If there's a risk that they're going to leave a party, it is a pathetically weak player who goes, oh well, he's just going to leave. That's a bad player. A good player is someone who says, well, the character doesn't really have a huge motivation to stay with the party, so let me find one. Let me go looking. Xander the Green, that is amazing. Thank you for that. That has brought my blood pressure down. I appreciate that. I really, really do appreciate that. You're saying hopefully no total party kill. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. There you go. I don't know. I don't know, Xander. I will be talking a little bit about Ghosts of Saltmarsh towards the end of the next hour. If you're still with us, that would be great. I love to hear feedback on the Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I don't have enough time when I'm running it on the Saturday nights. How are we doing for time? We're still okay. Pirate Knight 1 says, will you release a campaign book based on your version of Ghosts of Saltmarsh? Yes, I will. Not so much a campaign book. I haven't really changed a huge amount of stuff. Yes, it's a whole new map. Yes, it is new locations around the map. But Saltmarsh itself, I really haven't changed much in terms of the places that are there, in terms of the NPCs that are there. I have used what they have given me to drive those NPCs into darker places because of the theme that's running through Ghosts of Saltmarsh. But at the same time, so that hasn't really changed. So the book that I'm busy releasing, we originally titled it A Complete Guide to Aquatic Adventures. I have realized now we're sitting on 100 pages of material. I have realized that it's not aquatic adventures that we're doing, it's naval adventures, because the Saltmarsh book has so much on underwater stuff. And we have basically, and by we I say myself, and then I've had some wonderful play testers who've given me amazing feedback. We realized that the ship combat is the area that needed or that would benefit the most from an extended space. So there's 27 ships for all the different races. There's orc ships, there's goblin ships, there's merfolk ships, there's kobold ships. We've added in as many ships as we could from the various races and tried to give them as much flavor as possible. And then we reworked the ship mechanics. Don't get us wrong. We loved what they were doing in Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and that works really well if it is a transitory thing, if it's not long-term. But once it starts becoming your long-term focus, that's where the book that I'm busy writing will fit, because it details, okay, you've got a level 15 party, why do they want a ship? Now we've got a ship for them to sail on, and they can go and do that. So to answer these questions, yes, there will be a physical book that will be released, most likely through Blurb, because they've handled our last book so very, very well. And of course, it will be available on PDF. So there we are. I see that there has been a bit of a spike, a lag. I hope it's better. Just let me know if that continues, please. Now, on to our next question. We still got we got plenty of time. Mutama says, Roma 2306, thank you for that. I do appreciate that. Mutama says, adding to my previous question, it's one party with one GM being the main one and me working as a helper. Okay, during and after and before the sessions. But the problem I'm running into here is coordinating everything. Since I'll have to administer the movements of the big bad endgame and also provide the NPCs, spells, and running things alike. Okay, so it doesn't sound like you have divided the labor equally. What is the primary GM doing if you are the one who is administering the movements and NPCs and the spells? So usually the division of labor is the one GM will drive the story, and they will take care of NPCs, they will take care of the big bad, they will run the game. You might be sitting on the side and the GM says, all right, well, we're going to have you meet Doji the dwarf, and you know you have the NPCs for Doji. You would then hand those over to the GM. That would certainly be something that I would see working. I've done that before myself. 8 players is still incredibly unruly. It is really, really a big group. I applaud you for trying this, and I hope that it works out for you, but it will slow down. So in terms of monitoring the big bad's movements and stuff, that's the main GM's thing. That's not for you necessarily to worry about. You don't know. You won't theoretically necessarily even know what's going on in the story. You'll just be providing material as it's called for, or prepping stuff as it's coming up for. But again, it depends on the system that you are running, and as you say, you're having this difficulty of keeping track of everything. I would suggest maybe looking at a virtual tabletop, or going to World Anvil and setting up a World Anvil account and using World Anvil to keep track of all of your NPCs. That way you've got searchable databases. So instead of having piles of paper and you're, oh, where's this or where's that, you've got it all in one place. So If you go Fantasy Grounds, you can pre-make all those NPCs, and you can have all the numbers and stats and everything sort of handled for you in that way. If you go World Anvil, you've got layout, you've got all of your maps and things loaded in there. So I would maybe look at something like that. I mean, that's what these things do very, very well, is they organize data. So you can go and search for it and look for it. And on that note, it is 9 o'clock here, so it's on the hour. I see there are a few more questions, but hold them for now. Again, hold your questions. I'm sorry, I have to do this. Hold your questions. All right, so we have now... It's a raid! Hello, thank you, World Anvil. We've been raided. There we go. Lovely, we like raids. It's a raid. There we go. Pikmin Biomaster, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Let's go and have a look and see what you said there. Cheers for that. Okay, last question, and I'm going to go and talk about something else very briefly. So hold your questions. This is the last one. Pikmin Biomaster says, one of the campaigns I'm playing in is nearing its end, and I've made a whole family. There is a lot of risk, and I have a lot to lose. I find myself dreading this final encounter with the Overlord, because I know this final fight will cost me a lot. What would you recommend to a player that feels it's impossible to save everything he's worked for? What have you worked for? Yes, you've got this wonderful NPC family, you've got investment, you've got all of these hours put into it, and you don't want it to end. This is the chance for you to sit back and say, why? Why did your character get the family in the first place? Why did your character even think of investing so much time and so much effort and things like that? So all of that sort of thing should be going through your head. And then when you're going into that final encounter, keep that running in your head. You also have to look at, why did your character do that? Why did your character even go on the quest in the first place? Why did they get involved? In other words, what I'm saying to you is, you need to find in your moment of dread where you're like, oh, I don't want them to die and the GM's going to kill them. Of course the GM is going to kill them. That's why they're there. It's awesome. Let's get rid of them. Let's kill them. Let's use them. Let's abuse them. That's what NPCs are there for. The idea, however, is for you to go in there and go, this is for my family. And you fight that monster. Your character fights that monster for your family or for the kingdom. Maybe it's for both the kingdom and the family. And you play it to your best ability to represent what your character is doing and why your character is doing it. And they're doing it for their family. They're doing it for all of the stuff that they have built towards and for, so that no matter what the outcome, if the family is killed, you can play through that emotional drama and angst. But unlike real life, where we have these dread moments where we don't want to face them, you can face this battle, and whether the character wins or loses, you then have the opportunity to then run through the scenario and say, okay, well, what would they do if their family is found murdered? Would they go into a berserk rage? Let me play through that. Does that help my feeling of the family being... No, it doesn't. Or maybe, yes, it does. So look at it from, this is your emotional moment. So it's not about finishing their campaign. It's about this emotional moment in the character's life. And I would focus on that. And whether, like I said, whether it's tragic, whether it's happy, whether it's sad, it doesn't matter. Just give it everything you have, and you will be rewarded from that. So when you sit back, you go, this character has been through this. When you watch the film Gladiator with Russell Crowe in it, I think it was made in 2001. Gladiator it's a retelling of another story, which is an actual event that occurred in the Roman Empire. It's deeply tragic, but at the end of the film, it's not. We know that the character Maximus has got back to where he belongs, which is with his family, that is to say, in the fields of Elysium. So it's this wonderful journey that we've gone on, and there's this phenomenal climax. and they get what they want at the end. It's very, very satisfying to watch, even though it's deeply, deeply, deeply moving. Use that, draw on that. So good luck with that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so we are going to be launching this in the next couple of weeks, but because you guys are here, you're keeping me company. Someone was asking, oh, where are you? I'm currently in Minneapolis. Normally, I'm streaming from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on a Saturday in Tokyo, but for the next 2 months, I'm based here in the US, hanging out, checking out, seeing what's going on, and attending GenCon in August. So, yes, we are going to be launching our new, and I spoke about this last week, we're going to be launching our new searchable database. So it's going to be on our website. It is going to allow you to go to the database and type in geography or adventures or boring adventures, or you can type in a sequence of keywords, and it will then reveal to you all of the videos, hopefully, fingers crossed, all of the videos that contain information around what you have asked for. Now, obviously, there are thousands of questions. Just look at today's video, for example. Today's stream, where we've had so many questions coming through. So this searchable database is hopefully going to allow you to say, okay, cool, let me go to Great GM's website. Let me look for not boring land adventures, as an example, or running curses, etc. And it will go through it all, and it's going to bring up timestamps of every single video, and it's going to say, okay, this video from here to here, it talks about it, or this entire video titled how to handle curses is appropriate, or etc, etc. So that is a goal of mine. That is my ambition, and my ambition is to have it ready by 2020. Now you go, but that's 6 months away. Yes, it is, but there are over 400 videos on the one channel. So that is a huge amount of material. And when you consider that I talk for, on average, 15 to 20 minutes, to get that information out of those videos is going to take a long time. And then to get the database working well is going to take a lot more. Now, we're going to be calling for volunteers in the near future. I am just waiting for the web goblin to send me back information saying, this is the database format, so this is what we need. Then we're going to be asking for volunteers to join our team. We will credit you in the search block. It'll say this whole thing is made possible by these volunteers and things. And we will then start to compile this database. And then we're going to test it and make sure that it works and that it remains up to date and current. Because the last time we did a database, we broke stuff into 3 different categories, beginner, intermediate, and advanced GM, and we realized that just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to categorize them like that because, well, is avoiding boring overland travel, is that an intermediate GM skill? Is it a basic GM skill? You know, where is it? So anyway, there's lots and lots and lots of stuff to get ready, to kind of get planned, but I've been sitting here and we've sort of been working it out. Okay, this is how it's going to work, etc., etc. But I think it's going to come all right, and I think it's going to work really cool. So there is something like that. We will be asking for volunteers on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Discord. So if you are not following us there, go and find us. We are present on all 3, and when we put the call out, then you can ask for that. So that's what we're doing. Right, there is a tribute to the stunning survivalist. We will give you up as tribute, perhaps as sacrifice to the goblins to make sure that it happens. I do like that. Let's talk YouTube videos. I know there's burning questions, but we've got an hour, so relax. Okay, we've got 50 minutes. All right, fine. I understand. We've got 50 minutes. Just relax. So let's just do that. If you're new to the channel, if you've just joined us, when you are asking questions, put the word question in front of it, but don't ask questions just yet. We are moving into one of the categories that I happen to like. I happen to really enjoy this category. This is the YouTube videos you should watch. Now, one of the important things to bear in mind is that this is an opportunity for you to earn experience points. Yeah, that's right. You can earn experience points by finding the YouTube video that I am referencing and then posting a working link into the chat. I will be sitting here and making sure that YouTube approves the chats that are going through. So bear that in mind. But yes, first person to post up the chat in Twitch and the first person in YouTube. I'm going to give you you know what? I'm going to give you, because of Xander the Green's wonderful donation, I am going to give you 500 experience points per video that gets linked up first. 500. Normally I give out 100, but I am in a great mood tonight. I've got chocolate milk. This is a thing that doesn't exist where I come from in Japan, at least not in gallon bottles. And it's basically, it's my lifeline. It really is. So I am happy with this. Where do you put your XP, says Pterodatum. You can use your XP for anything you like. You can actually go to your next gaming session and tell your GM that you have been awarded 500 experience points. And they might ask what that means because you're playing Call of Cthulhu, but you know that you have 500 experience points in here. So bear that in mind. Bear that in mind. All right, first YouTube video. This is a YouTuber whom I think is absolutely awesome. I really do. Let me take a sip of chocolate. This YouTuber is funny. Well, I think he's funny. This YouTuber's got a whole bunch of stuff going on. I have an ultimate crush on this YouTuber. I think this is stuff that I go, I wish I had done that. Runesmith, Goblins, Dealing with Tactics. It came out just the other day. Goblins dealing with tactics. This is not the first video to deal with goblin tactics. It certainly won't be the last video to deal with goblin tactics. It doesn't necessarily talk very specifically about Dungeons and Dragons, although it is Dungeons and Dragons based. It could be applied to any time you have diminutive little creatures who have set up ambushes and things. I just found it very amusing in terms of the way that it was done. Emma Fries, I'm not sure how one would pronounce that. Looks like the link has been posted up by Emma Fries first on YouTube. That's 500 experience points to you. Enma Fries. That's to you. The Stunning Survivalist looks as if they've got the same code up. So I'm going to say Emma, the Stunning Survivalist, 500 experience points. Well done. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't watched it, bookmark it. Don't watch it now. Of course, you could watch it now, I suppose. So there we are. But don't do that. White Tiger, you're on a raid. Okay, good luck with that. Don't worry about posting up videos. Good luck with your raid. French Fries. Oh, Emma Fries. All right, Enma Fries. All right, there we go. Fantastic. Why didn't mine post? I don't know why yours didn't post. I'm watching the YouTube links here. Nothing's come through on YouTube, so maybe Cloctopus, you can try again on the next one. Maybe it was some finger problems. Who knows? Nonetheless, Runesmith, I really enjoy the humor and the sarcasm that he has in that. Speaking of humor and sarcasm, someone who is a YouTube friend of mine, and who I reference quite often on this channel, Seth Skorkowski, has released a video this week called Call of Cthulhu, The Grand Grimmery of Cthulhu Mythos Magic. It is one of the longest titles I have ever encountered, so good luck saying that out aloud 3 times to summon our great Dark Lord Cthulhu. Anyway, the video is Seth going through this new book that's come through. So if you are a Cthulhu fan, if you are into Cthulhu, that's definitely something to look at. Seth has been nominated for an Annie Award for Best Online Content. I wish him the very best of luck. I hope he wins. Of course, he's got some stiff competition in terms of some other online content that is there. But yes, definitely to him, I wish the very best of luck. Tanner got the video in just before Mythos did on YouTube, and I think that the Stunning Survivalist has pipped Terranatum to the post here, and everybody else for that matter. So that's another 500 experience points. There we go. All right, so Seth goes. I don't know what's wrong with me today. I think I need more chocolate milk or more cheese. I'm not sure. So we've got Seth Skorkowski. Someone who you are going to be familiar with if you are not a stranger to this YouTube channel. He runs his own YouTube channel. He calls it Dead Aussie Gamer, And this week he talks about Character Corner making Jaggerjaw. Jaggerjaw, or Jagsy as we would know him if you watch the Ghosts of Saltmarsh game that I run on twitch.tv/DND. He talks about how he created the character, or rather how I should say how we created the Shakan race together, and then how he created the character. It is an interesting journey into the mind of someone who has created a beloved character. I think a lot of people like Jagsy. He did some crazy stuff last episode, which had me going, okay, sure. There you go. So, yes, definitely something to look at. There are the links coming through now. Was it Angus Boys? Angus Boys, did you get it? I think you did. Tyrannatum again in Twitch, just lightning fingers there. So, there we go. It's very strange. Clocktopus, if you're posting stuff, I can't see it. It ain't coming through. So maybe there's, I'm not sure. Maybe you got a link blocker in or something like that. Anyway, Dead Aussie Gamer takes us through his process of creating a Jaggerjaw. Pretty cool. And then finally, and this is part, and you go, well, how does this have to do with designing your world? Well, this is about how to get into your world in the first place. WASD20, that's Nate, did a video on the Dungeons & Dragons Essentials Kit review. Now, that is the new Dungeons & Dragons Essential Kit that came out with the white dragon. The name escapes me now. My brain has gone numb for some unknown reason. Nonetheless, he released this video, and it's pretty insightful. If you're looking at the new box that Dungeons & Dragons just released, it replaces Minds of Fendelvir as an introduction box set to role-playing, and I think it's pretty awesome. So Nate takes us through there. Angus beating out Tanar yet again. Oh dear. And Tyrannatum on Twitch. Is anyone else on Twitch? Has everyone left Twitch? Has Twitch collapsed? I'm not sure. Anyway, so there we go, Clocktopus. Finally it came through. Third on the list, I'm afraid. So, yeah. There we go. All right, so that is my YouTube videos to watch this week. Not a very long list because I thought the castle thing would take long, and it took longer. So we're back to questions. Creative writing on the half hour. So we've got 13 minutes for questions, and then we will be doing creative writing. Now, questions. Ask your questions. Remember to put the word question in caps lock in the front of your question so that I can see. So, yes, Tyrannatum, I think you assassinated everyone on Twitch. Is like, I will get all of the experience points. I want to win. So, there we are. There we are. So, yes. Right. Is that a question? This is just the smartest advertisement for other channels that I have ever seen. Mythos, you know, they don't talk about my channel. I don't care. That's not the point. The point is that we're here to learn, and we're here to become better, and we are here to enjoy and to have fun. And those are the videos that I think will help you guys have fun. It helped me. I watched the stuff. I chuckled. I laughed. I smiled. Cried occasionally when I realized I was running out of chocolate milk. But yeah. Dead Aussie Gamer is a good friend of mine. Seth Skorkowski, like I said, is a friend of mine. Runesmith, don't know, never met, probably won't. Nate from WSD20. We've exchanged Twitter comments once. I don't know. Does that make us like bros? I don't think so. There are the questions. Wall of questions. Elizabeth Russell says that she has moved off of the screen and will no longer be available. No. Elizabeth Russell says, what are some ways to push your party to make their characters? At what point do you assume you need to pull together a new party? I do believe you have stumped me. What are some ways to push your party to make their characters? At what point do you assume you need to pull together a new party? Elizabeth Russell, I'm going to ask you to expand on that, if you please, and just make sure that I see the question. Your expansion. Because are you asking at what point do you abandon the player group and because you realize that they're not good? I need to understand. And what are you pushing them to do to make their characters? As in, you have a bunch of players who want to play, but they haven't made characters, and they're not wanting to make characters. If that's the case, please go and join the person buying the pizza and stay there. That is what I would say to people who say, oh, I want to play. Where's your character? I haven't made it yet. Right, you don't want to play. You're wasting my time. Moving on. Next. That's that. So just expand on that. Zach King then says, the PCs finished their backgrounds. Yay! All the PCs, except for one, were engaged and made fun backgrounds. How do I accommodate a PC who doesn't like backstory and role-playing? The others enjoy role-playing. Old me, the me of March, would say, well, you've got to make sure that you have a nice balance between combat and the like. Wow, look at that. Thank you, everybody, for all of that stuff coming through. Let's just see there. We've got... oh, so much more. Keku Zernadorf, I will come to your question. Abazanaf, I will come to your question as well. Thank you. So when it comes to players who are not engaged and who don't want to role play, and you've got other characters and players who do, you have a choice. Do you lower the tone of your role play to accommodate that one other player, or do you invite that one other player to go and buy pizza whilst the rest of you actually play the game? And my feeling is, and maybe I'm getting old, maybe I'm getting tired, maybe it's all this fresh Minnesotan air, or I don't know what. I just get to the point where I'm like, you know what? You don't want to create a character, you don't want to role play, that's fine. Pizza shop, I'll have Hawaiian because pineapple belongs on pizza. And whilst they're there, we're going to play our role-playing game. So I get tired of going, well, you need to work together, and you need to tone down the role-playing for the Why? So crotchety grumpy me says, pizza, Hawaiian, now. Next question. Oh, let's go to these questions first before I forget them. So, Keku Zenordorf. How do I get my friends to improve their bosses due to all the bosses we have fought through going down super fast? All right, so your friend is the GM and you're trying to maybe help the GM to create more interesting combats and things. Keku Zenordorf, I would suggest that if your GM is not being very tactical, if they're not being very combat focused, it probably means they're more interested in the narrative side of things. So maybe instead of attacking the monster and taking it out straight away, you engage it in dialogue. You engage it with combat. Instead of engaging it with combat, you engage it with dialogue. So you look at things like, all right, we talk to it. If the monster responds, then perhaps your GM prefers to have more talky stuff and less combat stuff. That's certainly an option. Alternatively, if the GM is simply making these rather weak characters, or these weak bosses and things, they're underpowering them. You have two choices. Take the GM aside and say, I think you can make the combat more dangerous. We would like it to be more dangerous. Because it's quite easy at the moment. Can I give you some suggestions? Because they might swing in the opposite direction and then you get a total party kill. You don't want that either. That's something to look at. Alternatively, well, maybe you should DM. Offer to DM a one-shot or a two-shot and show them how it's done. That's another possibility. So have a look at those things, think about that. And again, don't be afraid to go to your friend and say, hey, listen, do you want the monsters to be a little bit more powerful? Do you feel that the encounters are working for you? Do you like what's happening? If they say, oh, they're great, they're awesome, then maybe talk about, well, can we improve their tactics a little bit? Send them to watch Runesmith so they can see how encounters can be built a little bit better. Certainly let them ponder that. You can send them to Nerdarchy or whomever, whatever YouTube channel you like, where they are more technical in terms of their builds. Build the ultimate monster god villain thing. Let them have a look at that and let them think about that. But explore first if they would rather have a narrative solution to a combat solution, because maybe they are trying to run that kind of game and they feel they just have to give you these combat wins easily because they don't want to kill the party and those sort of things. So something to think about. Abazanov, any tips on mass combat? I do NPC turns in groups. So yes, absolutely, brilliant idea. NPCs as groups, without a doubt. What I generally do, and I know that people are going to go, but that's so inaccurate. Yes, it is. Mass combat, I basically say, all right, this group, highly trained archers and soldiers who are super good at their jobs. They've got good equipment, well trained, well prepared. They get +5 to their roll. Bunch of undead zombies and various bits and pieces, they get +2 to their roll. And then I just roll 2 dice. Okay, they got 14, they got 5. Oh, why did I do bad maths? Okay, so 9 skeletons from the group are destroyed. Or if it's hundreds, 90 are destroyed. So I do it very, very simply that way, and then I would look at what the players are doing. So the players are helping by attacking the undead Lich Lord. Okay, cool, they're winning. Okay, great. Then the skeleton army needs to be overpowering the human army. Somehow, maybe there's a giant undead mammoth that's now joined the pack. So now they're getting +10 for the next die roll versus the other guys who are only getting +5. Because they have this giant undead. In other words, you're doing the opposite to what the party is doing, or so if the party is doing really badly, well, maybe the army is doing really badly as well. So you're using it as a narrative structure to put pressure and to put tension onto the game as it's busy unfolding. You don't ever necessarily, and you can just use the dice if you want to, that's entirely fine, but I always like to put a little bit of narrative stuff onto that. So there we go. Okay, writing challenge coming up in 4 minutes. 4 minutes. So prepare yourselves. Cloctopus, any suggestions on a campaign based around a prison break in an Iron Kingdom's Cardoron Gulag? Got a theme of cruelty. Made a big bad, and got the basic plot for both of your vids. Okay, well, that's fantastic. That's super cool. Sam Catterall, thank you very much for that. I do appreciate it. New Zealand dollars are awesome because they're from New Zealand, and I think New Zealand is awesome. So back to Cloctopus's question first before we come to yours. Cloctopus, prison. I don't know about a campaign based on Prison Break. If you even watch the TV series Prison Break, guess what? They broke out. And then they had to break back in again because the campaign wasn't just breaking out. There was so much more to it. So that is definitely something to bear in mind. Is maybe you limit yourself a little bit too much. Maybe you want to expand that. However, having said that, a prison break is about assembling a team of people. It's about getting the routines. It's about building relationships with the guards. So there's lots of stuff along those lines. Now, I'm not sure who the Iron Kingdom, the kingdoms of Cadorian are. But in terms of cruelty, instead of when the player's characters make a mistake and they get caught, instead of having them killed or executed, have them severely tortured. And I would do this by adding in a mechanic. I would add in a little game mechanic, a little bit of homebrew, where the player characters, every time you are taken and beaten, you losing stat points if you're whatever you're using. So if it's Dungeons and Dragons, you're losing strength, you're losing stamina or constitution, you're losing wisdom, you're losing intelligence. You can describe it as being viciously done, cruelly done. It's waterboarding, it's tendon capping, it's ankle breaking, it's thumb screw, whatever you want to do, how far you want to take it. Make sure that your party and your players, by the way, are happy with that level of violence and that sort of thing. So definitely think about that, because that makes it cruel. That makes the players go, oh my goodness, I have just lost 1 point in Constitution. I'm sickly. And why? Because you had the skin on your back peeled off by the psychopath warden, and he now has it hanging as a flag out in the yard to remind all prisoners that anyone found trying to dig a hole in the wall will have their back flayed. So all sorts of horrid and horrific things like that certainly will allow you to do that. And of course, when those stats get down to 0, they die. So something to think about. Something to think about. Right, so let's go to New Zealand's question first, and then I see Elizabeth Russell has given us our expansion that we were looking for. First of all, Sam Catterall says, I'm running a Dungeons & Dragons campaign with a gunslinger. How would I run interesting loot items for him, given that this is a medieval cyberpunk setting? Oh, you gotta love New Zealand, don't you? You really do. A medieval cyberpunk setting. I'm not entirely sure what that would be like. I think it would be grungy. It could be pretty cool. It could be like Harry Potter on crack cocaine with a little bit of LSD mixed in there. I think it could be very, very interesting. Interesting loot items for him. How would I run interesting loot items for him? Oh, I see. Okay, so you're not the actual gunslinger. All right, sorry. Slow brain moment. Well, I would have him start to find... I mean, obviously you can give them the same... You know, here's a +1, here's a +2, here's a this or that. That's sort of a given. What you could do is that he starts to find... Maybe it's the hammer of a flintlock. Except that this particular hammer, it's metal when it's lying on the ground, but the moment he picks it up, it turns into this little sinewy, almost newt-like serpent thing. So he has to keep it in a jar. But when he puts it in the jar, clink, it's back to being metal. And over the course of the adventures, he could find various bits of this flintlock rifle or whatever the firearm system is that you're using, until eventually he discovers that all of these little bits and pieces, when combined together, create a sentient weapon. So you could do something along those lines. So when it gets put together, it's a living, breathing weapon. So it's almost like an animal companion, but it's this living flintlock weapon, and it fires fireballs or the equivalent, something along those lines. That's one way. The other way is that each of the components gives him a +1 to his attack, or if he wears it as a charm, until he realizes he can assemble this whole thing. So that would be something to think about. Right, so that is Sam Catterall, our expansion from Elizabeth Russell. I offered to run a D&D game for my sister's friend group, but I only have 2 PCs. It's not been long, but I can't tell if most of them are interested or not. Okay, I would simply say, hey, the game is running next week, Friday night, be there, or go get pizza. Pineapple. That's what I would suggest you do. That's the only way to find out if people are interested. Put the money where the mouth is. Show up or don't. So... Something along those lines. All right, we're not going to do any more questions for now. Hold your questions. It is half on the hour, just a little bit after, as a matter of fact. So bear that in mind. Creative writing. If you're new to the channel, the way that creative writing works is that I will be giving you a piece or something to be creative over. Try to keep it in the realm of where it's supposed to be, which is helping you to sometimes think out of the box. The next time you get stuck going, well, what type of thing should I do? What should I do? These creative writing exercises are designed to empower you so that you are not necessarily drawing blanks. So the way that it works, I will read out what you need to do. Think about it. You don't have to type. This is not a question of who can type the fastest. Think about it and then type your answer into chat. Chat restricts you down to 200 words or so. So keep it there. Just bearing that in mind. So keep your questions, Athena Gary. I see you there. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Or at least I see your questions. So thank you for that. We'll get to questions just after creative writing. What is wrong with me today? We'll go to one museum, eat some canned possum, and it's just crazy. So, the creative writing. Reminder, don't forget Elizabeth Russell. I thought I had a handle as Elizabeth Russell. Oh, expansion 2. I'm not particularly close to them, so I don't want to come off as pushy, but I would like to show soon if I need to find other players so the 2 who are currently expressing interest can actually play. Yeah, as I said, Elizabeth, it's quite simply a case of saying, right, we're running a game next week. Be there or not. I don't think that's pushy. I think that's setting boundaries. So do that. The chocolate milk is spiked. Well, if it is, I'm going to have to go and have a word with Target and check the other 4 gallons that I have purchased. Creative writing. Here we go. When I was wandering around Castle Rock Museum, what struck me was the way that the museum was laid out. It started with the Roman time period and the arms and armor that they bore, And then it moved to the Vikings and the medieval and then finally to the Renaissance, which is where it stopped. That's the period up to which the museum works. And what was interesting was watching and looking at how the weaponry changed, how it evolved to overcome the technology that had been developed to protect against that, or to maybe deal more damage against that. And then we saw how the armor got reduced down as firearms came in. I believe, have we lost connection? There's all sorts of funny things going on with YouTube there. Not entirely sure what's happening. I hope you can still hear me. Just checking. Stream health video output is low. Did the stream just die? Are we coming back? Stream health is fine this side. Maybe there's a storm happening somewhere. I must admit Japan is pretty good at that side of things. Yeah, probably a storm. Press F5, Control-Alt-Delete. Dracone, yeah, gonna have to bow out. The loading is just too problematic. That is strange. Twitch is not happy either. Oh, it's a network thing. You can still hear. I can sort of hear you. Sort of hear me. Maybe we should call it. I'm back. There's nothing I can do about it. No, definitely not. Static image. Here we go, maybe. We see little bursts of it. Still saying video output is low. Stream is restoring. Maybe it just doesn't want the creative challenge to happen today. Maybe that's what it is. It's like, no, we don't want to do we don't want to do creative writing. No, we don't. We're back. It's good. Okay. Well, maybe there's something happening somewhere. Hopefully not. All right. Well, then let's get through this creative writing challenge before we lose signal again. The creative writing challenge that I put to you today is to think about a fantasy world. And in this fantasy world, we have this thing called magic. Now, magic is used by individuals who can make attacks from a long distance and affect a large group of people. In other words, it is arguably the most effective form of combat on the battlefield today. You are tasked by the ruler of the kingdom to invent a weapon or a piece of armor that will be effective in overcoming magic users. So you can't just say, well, I'm going to use magic. It has to be a weapon or a piece of armor that a blacksmith could forge, because the reason why the firearm was so dangerous, it was simply because if you had 1,000 firearms, you suddenly had 1,000 gunners. So in this case, we want to have 1,000 people armed with your new invention, with your new device that will overcome magic users. Assume that the magic users primarily cast Fireball, Entangle, Lightning Bolt, let's say nothing higher than level 3 kind of spells. And if you don't know what level 3 means because you're not a Dungeons and Dragons player, don't worry about it. Just invent something that would prevent the average wizard from causing damage. Now, you can try and develop new alloys, but you need to be creative on this. It's not just a case of, well, I make an anti-magic shield. How do you make it? Creativity is all about making sure that it's a believable solution to the problem. I've had some thoughts going around in my head, and I think that you'll be happy with them. So what are your invention? What is your thinking? What armor could the people wear? Perhaps what device could be developed that will predominantly act against wizards, keeping them from casting those horrid spells all over the battlefield? So think about it. Now, let's see. Dimeritium swords and shackles. You can steal from it, but make it your own. Make it your own. That's what's important. Kyle Brautigan, welcome. We're having a bit of challenge with our stream. Okay. Richard Garcia, I would create a Taresk kill sword since they can resist magic naturally and combine that with technology from a gnome to create a sword that can observe, dampen, and deflect magic. I need 1,000 of them. I need 1,000 of them. So a single item, a Taresk kill sword that can do all of that sort of stuff. Can you reasonably make this for 1,000 peasants to use? You don't have unlimited money. Magic, anti-magic item costs too much. It costs too much money. The firearm, this was the fundamental thing. It was cheaper to make a firearm than it was to make a longsword because it was easier to make once they worked out how to do it. So no anti-magic. It's I think it's too expensive. We need 1,000 of them. Explosives and stigma. Okay, you're going to run a political campaign where it's like propaganda against wizards. We can't have metal because heat metal is a thing. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Kyle, for that cool comment. You're running speech to text, so if it doesn't make sense, right? A gas weapon that dries the mouth so badly that speaking becomes impossible. Duck Feths. That's not bad. That's not bad. Xander the Green iron net launchers. I like it. If you are tangled up in a net, you ain't casting anything that has semantic components to it. So I like that one very much. I love the gas idea. Why? We used gas from World War I. Worked very, very well. So gas weapons, iron nets. I'm liking this. Is there magic? Is there a type of magic logic common knowledge? Even from a simplistic system, you could teach them 1,000. Maybe. Angus says trebuchets that scatter shot to interfere with mages targeting. That's starting to get a little bit more interesting, perhaps. Okay. There's all sorts of things. We need to look for materials and creatures that have magic resistance. Interesting. That's another cool one. Why is it cool? Because the party that you are now running this game for have been tasked with finding a creature that is immune to magic. That's super cool. What else have we got? Mr. Cade says shields with magic gems that absorb magic energy and allow the wielder to shoot the magic back through their weapon. Pricey. That's what I'm hearing. Price tag. I don't have enough for 1,000 of them. A quick drying foam or glue that can be launched by way of sling, says Grizzless. Aha! That's super cool. Glue is made from the hooves of horses. That's not too expensive to make. Slings, ultra cheap weapon. A flamethrower, but it would be hard to make 1,000 of them. Yes, it would be. Absolutely, Elizabeth Russell, without a doubt. An anti-wizard order of knights using finger traps to keep mages from using their hands to cast spells instead of shackles. Perfect. What's going to happen? The mages are all going to stop using those wonderful hand gesture spells and switch only to verbal spells. That's for sure. Poison-dipped arrows that paralyze opponents. Shy Dynasty, let's get some frogs going, and we are pretty good. Anti-voice arrow could possibly be. I like the narrative that comes with that. This is from White Tiger 225. Says the anti-voice arrow is one of pride by the blacksmiths of the Roki people. Forged with the vocal cords of a harpy, the arrowhead creates a silencing zone when it flies. The harpies, farmed and slaughtered en masse, is a horrid sight, but a necessary one to keep the kingdom safe. The vocal cords drain all sound, as the legendary harpies are known for. No one can scream in pain when the harpy cords are in contact with their flesh. All I want is your voice. There we go. Loving this stuff. Loving this stuff. Siege weapon that can be transported by a team of 4. 2 people to carry the weapon and place it. One loads and one carries the ammo, and the other one scouts and aims the weapon. Can be loaded with alchemical items to create area of effects to disrupt spellcasting. Love it. Lightning rods, like the flamberge from earlier, the holders get double pay. Lightning rods, it's pretty cool. Steel plates with quicksilver mirrors to reflect the spells. Interesting. Can you imagine a line of 1,000 peasants and the wizards start casting the spells and the peasants all lift up little mirrors? Could be pricey, but I kind of like it. I think that could be that could work. Ryan Ryle says large rounded shields made of ironwood, wood as strong as iron, and alchemically treated to resist magic. The shields interlock, creating walls and domes to block. I like that one. The alchemy side to resist magic could be pricey, but we might be able to do that. I like that. Paralytic poisons coming through there as well. I think that's pretty cool. Mirrored shields, mirrored armor. Again, we're looking at price tags there. Smoke bombs that contain hallucinations. Jude Brill, it's a good idea unless we drop one of those bombs in our own ranks. Then it comes a bit of a problem. Pikmin Biomaster, the Mage Bane. Wickedly curved daggers carried by espionage support units, 1,000 of them. These daggers are cheaply made and can be effectively used as both thrown and in melee, as every part hurts. Okay, interesting idea. The spikes can cut roots, and when thrown at incoming spells, the shape typically causes the spell to misfire as the various spikes of the Mage Bane deflect, redirect, or direct the spell. Again, are we doing 1,000 of them? A sacrificial group of peasants that pray to the god of murder for a favor. Bad life requires service, yes, or requires vice. I think you could do that. Blinding action, such as igniting manganese, Radical Larry, that could be cool. The Holy Antioch Grenade, the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch, I agree. All right, sea urchins spikes have paralysis in them. I tried to use that in Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and thankfully that was avoided. So yes, all right, fantastic ideas coming through. I love them all. I think they're all super cool. The device that I was thinking of was a bolus that was made very simple, 3 little balls attached to a central core, and the string that's normally used, that would simply be replaced with razor wire, which may or may not be expensive, and that could be thrown. It could also be just a device that's fired from a crossbow, which latches around the throat of the mage with spikes that embed themselves into the throat, again cutting off the voice, similar to the gas idea. So there's some really cool ideas. Why then are we not using them in our games? I haven't come across this stuff before. I think it's really cool. The little gas grenades, they could be little clay pots filled with this noxious gas. Sulfur, if you have ever smelt sulfur, it gets you to choke. There's a lot of very naturally occurring gases that could be used for this kind of stuff. So I think when we look at it from that perspective, we go, well, yes, why wouldn't they take out the mages? Those would also effectively work against healers too. So it prevents all those horrid little priests from resurrecting and keeping all of the army alive that you're busy fighting by simply knocking them out. So the creative writing exercise for today, anyway, was about getting you to say, okay, well, the next time I go to a museum, let me have a look at this option. Let's have a look at this option, and let's see how they adapted. And let's look at my world. What is combat like in my world? Well, now we know. We've got harpy arrows and gas stuff and things flung by slings and crossbows and toads and spiders. It could be very, very interesting option. Xander Green points out, of course, that it is pricey to get paralytic poisons from toads, spiders, and snakes and the like. Yes, it is, until we have our alchemists concoct something of a similar nature. We can figure out something like that, perhaps. Or maybe it doesn't need to go that far. Something that I learned when I was here in the States last time with the archery was that longbows and the arrows fired by them, the glue that was used to glue the arrow head to the shaft, and these were made in the thousands, the glue was toxic. So even if the arrow didn't kill you, you'd get infected with this toxic glue that was used in the arrows, and that would go septic and you'd die from that. Not a long-term, it's a long-term solution, not a short-term solution, but if the glue was easily available as it was, maybe that's something that we can look at. We have got 11 minutes left for the last of the questions. So if you have any more questions, let us know now. Pepper bombs, Richard Garcia says. Pepper bombs. Excellent idea. Excellent idea. It's basically a sneezing spell. Try cast a spell when you are busy leaking your brain out your nose. It ain't easy. It ain't easy. So there we are. Now, I didn't even consider glue being on an arrow. No, I didn't either, but the flight feathers need to be attached somehow, and the arrowhead itself, that is how they attached it to the shaft of the arrow. Hence, going to museums and things is pretty damned awesome. Any more questions before we finish off today's stream? I have had a lot of fun, and I hope that you have. So if there are any more questions, now is the time to ask them. Battle bards with bagpipes. Always fun. Phil the Pipe says, I had the big bad kill an NPC my players really liked, and they want to have a funeral. I don't just want to say, yes, you do. Any ideas? The funeral gives you an opportunity to introduce the NPC's family that perhaps the party didn't know about. It allows you to introduce another NPC who gives them some information as to where the big bad is going, if the big bad wasn't killed. That funeral, I would roleplay heavily. I wouldn't just say you have the funeral. I would roleplay it heavily. I would get each of the players to have their character. Well, do you want to say something about, poor old Bob? I would have them each make it solemn, make it a moment. Let them be aware that death in your campaign is not trivial. It's not something that happens for no real reason. It is a conscious thing that happens. It is something that's going to happen to the PCs as well, and that it is a moment to be marked. So yes, I would look at either family suddenly showing up or one of the other NPCs says something very poignant and leads them on a specific type of journey. So something to definitely bear in mind there. Chris Walker, I recently bought your book and the page with the large who-what grid confuses me horribly. Are there any YouTube video resources I could view to help me understand that particular page? It is my fault. It is... But think of it not as I must answer these questions. And when you are looking at that block, think of those questions in terms of the particular object. So when you're answering, let's say, the specific time. So let's say it's by the full moon. And it comes to the question, what? And you go, well, what does the question what have to do with by the full moon? What is the reason for it to be the full moon? So that's how that question applies. And then you go, well, when? Well, when is the full moon going to happen? So those boxes are there for you to apply those questions to the top section, to your top main plot, and to question it and develop it and work it through. If you have a look at the Ghosts of Saltmarsh behind the scenes, which was on the YouTube channel, I think it was episode 1 or episode 2, I did that page. I took that page and I worked through it in terms of how I came up with my campaign for the Ghosts of Saltmarsh. And you can see the power it gives you by answering some of those questions. We developed this whole big bad NPC based on that sheet rather than on one of the previous sheets. So don't stress. I didn't word it clearly enough in the book. It is on me. That is my mistake. So bear that in mind. All right. Next question. Radical Larry says, what resources or tips would you recommend for creating a consistent personality that has a rich backstory? Radical Larry, I would say head on over to World Anvil. They are sponsors of my show. Bear that in mind. So I'm naturally prejudiced towards them. However, you want to know how to make a rich character, go there. Either create a character or create a character in World Anvil. You will see that there is an NPC. There's a red box if you've chosen Dungeons and Dragons. There's a red box that appears. It's got the logo of How to Be a Great GM, the little angry, grumpy face GM in the corner, and that will prompt you for a whole lot of things as to why we like that character. I've also done some videos on likable NPCs, how to make your NPC likable. Have a look at that because it also applies to player characters, how to make your player character likable. And there's 3 elements that you look at there: competence, likability, and proactivity. And you should rate your character anyway should be high in all 3 of those. Otherwise, we won't like your character. So there we go. Xander the Green says, how did you meet your players for Saltmarsh? They seem pretty cool. They are phenomenally cool. Dead Aussie Gamer I met. He was and still is a Patreon of the Great GM channel. He's been a long time fan and we hit it off. We're both from the Southern Hemisphere. I'm originally from South Africa and he's from Australia. So we became good friends and we've been role-playing for a couple years. He was on my original show, The Adventures of the Windswift. Then time zones became a problem, so we just hung out and remained friends. And then with Ghost of the Saltmarsh, there was an opportunity for him to come back. Jenny was she responded to a casting call that I did for The Adventures of the Windswift about a year ago. She auditioned. We really liked what she brought to the table. And I think if you watch The Adventures of the Windswift, she plays this very timid, unsure catfolk, this Cathar, who's very deep into her books and in her lore and those kinds of things. Then you look at Captain Salt, who's decisive, threatening, aggressive, angry. A really good example of the same player, I think anyway, playing two very different types of characters. Janet from World Anvil, she is from World Anvil, so I've been working with her since we started the partnership with World Anvil almost a year ago now. So that's where I knew her from. Kaora, I didn't know. I did not know Kaora, other than from his artwork, which was super, super cool. So he came through and we did an audition. It was like, I kind of like what you're doing. That's my level of crazy. I like it. And then Myri was recommended to us, very heavily recommended to us. We reached out to the German community. We said, we would like somebody from Germany or from Europe. Who can we go with? And they all said Myri. Sam Catterall, thank you for that super chat. I really do appreciate that. So yeah, that's how we got the group together, and it had to go through Wizards of the Coast approval, and they put their stamp of approval on the players, and I'm very glad that they did. We're having a lot of fun. Sam Catterall says, question or opinion on Glyph of Warding using an 8th level spell slot with reverse gravity as an effect in an atrium as a dungeon trap. I love that idea. You know, Glyph of Warding is a really powerful spell. And when we were dealing with Ghosts of Saltmarsh, we're like, okay, well, what other things would a ship have? What could you do? You could put Glyphs of Warding on water barrels and then drop them off the back of the ship so that they slide up against opposing enemy ships and explode. You can do those kinds of things. I think when you're expending it as an 8th level slot, I think that would be appropriate. I'm not the right person to ask, however. I would look to your GM and say, can I do this? And do you think it's fair? 8th level, anti-gravity. I'm not too familiar with the levels in terms of the high level spells. Anti-gravity, I want to say is a level 8 or a level 7 or somewhere around there. Yeah, speak to your GM. Speak to your GM. I think it should be perfectly acceptable, or at least it should be you can use anti-gravity as a spell and have that act as a warding spell by spending that at one spell slot higher. Something like that. I think that could be interesting to look at. Right. Where's the smoking gun? How do we deal with GM burnout? Please put the word question in front of your question so that I can see that it's a question. We've got 2 minutes left before the end of the show. Here we go. So yes, how do we deal with GM burnout? I have done a video on that. You got to look for why and what do you love about the game, and then you got to do that. Stop doing whatever it is that is causing you to have burnout. If you're going, I don't want to run the next game, ask yourself why. Is it the players? Is it the campaign itself? Is it the story? Is it the style? Is it the setting? And then change those up and try again. Rooney, I think we're going to make this almost the last question for tonight. Do you still talk to the original South African Bacon Battalion? Will we see more of that series again? I love their characters and the chemistry. I do still speak to all of them. They are still my very good friends. I was meant to stay with 2 of those characters, Sin and Seus from that show that was Barrador and Kalasa. They're getting married in August. How awesome is that? It's going to be a wonderful safari wedding. I wish I could be there. I am either here in the US or traveling to Japan again. So yes, they are absolutely awesome. Will we see more of that series again? I would like to say yes, but I'm not sure. When I go back to South Africa, I'll try and get the gang together and see what we can do. But timing and real life always get in the way, as you know. If your question was not answered tonight, because it's now nearly 10 p.m. and that's when I turn into a pumpkin. So if your question was not answered in today's show, please, please, please head on over to discord.gg/greatgm. Let me just make sure that the channel that I'm talking about is still there. And you will find the channel there. I'm going to rename it. It is just called Live Sessions QA. Okay, it's called Live Sessions Qua. Live Sessions Qua. Go there, ask your question again. Paste your question, take it from chat and paste it in there if you can. That's discord.gg/greatgm. Put it in there and I promise you I'll answer those questions next week, Friday, when we have another sessions with the Great GM. Until then, to everybody who donated on the stream this week, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I think you did. It was amazing. I really do appreciate that. Thank you. Everybody who contributed to the creative writing. So much fun. So much creativity. Mages on the battlefield. Watch out. And until next time, or until I see you on Ghost of Saltmarsh tomorrow, that's 1 p.m. Pacific time on twitch.tv/DND. I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.